Imagine if you were once a summoned hero who was fighting the final boss, but was mysteriously returned to Earth. What would you do if you were one day transported back to that world? In a classroom, Suzaku Setsu was lost deep in thought before he is interrupted by his childhood friend, Yuhi. He wishes for her to stop approaching him in public as he doesn't want false rumors to spread about them, but Yuhi doesn't mind. Rather, she is more interested in how long his hair is, and offers to cut it for him. He gives up and agrees to let her cut it, and he also wonders how the other world is doing. Suddenly, the view outside became dark, and a magic circle gradually spreads throughout the classroom. Everyone is in a panic, but Setsu seems expectant about a possibility. The magic seems to have transported them somewhere deserted, and while everyone is confused, Setsu seems to find the place familiar. They hear something in the distance, and what they see are demonic knights approaching them. As the enemies start charging toward them, the panicking students also start to run away. Setsu, however, is very calm. When the knights reach Setsu, Yuhi jumps in to protect him, but it was completely unnecessary, as with a mere flick of his finger, he sends it flying. Yuhi is confused about what happened, but Setsu quickly drags her away towards the others. On the other side, an army of soldiers charge past to clash with the demons. Melee combat doesn't work too well, but luckily there are mages to support the army from behind. The students watch from a distance, but Setsu is confused about why the battle is happening, as the wars should have ended years ago. A girl arrives on horseback, and she tells everyone to leave as this place is dangerous. Setsu seems to recognize her, and she is joined by another knight, who orders the army to charge. The man easily slays a demon, while the girl uses magic to mow down the enemies. While the demons are distracted, Setsu quickly leads Yuhi away to safety. They ended up in the nation of Destinia, where the students are greeted by the king, who calls them otherworld heroes. He explains that the kingdom is being invaded by demons, and proclaims fate has summoned everyone to help the country, just as the original hero did to stop the previous war 5 years ago. The princess elaborates that an otherworld hero had appeared to bring peace 5 years ago, and lowers herself to ask for everyone's aid in the war effort. The students are concerned for themselves, and just wish to remain safe, but the princess somehow takes their hesitation as agreement as she thanks them for their determination. As everyone leaves, Setsu promises Yuhi he will keep her safe. Not long after, the training now begins in earnest. Students are taught that magic is all about having a solid mental image. The girls look constipated, and Yuhi is able to produce some flames, impressing Setsu as he stalks her. He gets caught while walking around, and we learn the girl's name is Elka. She criticizes him for his disrespect and slacking off instead of training. But Setsu doesn't care, and his selfish attitude reminds her of the previous hero of 5 years ago. She criticizes the hero as capricious, egotistical, and uncaring to women's feelings. She warns him it's a dangerous world and advises him to return to training, but he'd rather she try and force him. She charges at him, but he dodges and slaps her cake, leaving her aroused at the familiar sensation. Elka now recognizes him as the previous hero and bows to him in complete submission. As Setsu wonders how long she'll kneel in front of him, Elka excitedly exclaims she's his chair. He ends up sitting on her, and she expresses her pleasure from being his slave. Setsu just finds it creepy how masochistic she is, but Elka finds delight from suffering. The male warrior, Glain, is baffled by their position, but as Elka explains that Setsu was back, along with her weird fetish, he comes to believe her. The group rushes over to inform their companion Thea, but she's already known of his return from the familiar magic power she's sensed. Glain isn't strong with magic, so he didn't know, while Elka pretends she knew all along. Setsu expresses his happiness to return to them, and they welcome him back, happy that he is alive and well. He considers them lucky to be safe considering the battles that broke out while he was away. Setsu wants clarification on the ongoing war with the demons, while his companions also wish to know what happened to him. From their perspective, he abruptly disappeared after his final battle, and Setsu isn't too sure himself. He remembers facing off against Toma, and in their final clash an explosion of magical power happens. Setsu then found himself reborn on Earth with intact memories and magic power, but found himself summoned again many years later. Everyone seems to believe that it's the work of destiny, but Setsu changes the topic back to the war and his suspicions that Toma might be behind the current war. He felt a familiar magic curse on the demon knights he encountered earlier, but according to the group, Toma had also disappeared after their battle, so he might still be alive. Glain is then called away to meet with the king, and Elka states this would have been his job, but Setsu doesn't want to be held back by duties. His original plan was to travel the world after restoring order, and they reflect that the hard-won peace has to be maintained. In a meeting with the king and his officials, the king declares all-out war against the demons. Glain wishes for the king to wait for their emissary to return, but the princess emphasizes that it was the demons that initiated the attack unprovoked. With the timely appearance of the new heroes, she believes that justice is on their side. Even the king seems smug, as he criticizes the previous hero for wanting a non-aggression pact, and agrees that fate is on the side of humanity. With this, there is nothing Glain can do. Yuhi is practicing magic outside and is making some progress. Setsu appears and compliments her talent, and while she's happy with his compliments, she's hesitant to use it to hurt others. However, she promises to use her talent to protect Setsu, and he's happy to see her mood change. The hero party meets in secret, and Glain states he's bought them time, stalling by arguing the new heroes need more time to train. Setsu decides to step up and stop the war himself. Everyone wants to follow him, but he stops them, saying he'll be traveling alone this time. He can't have them abandon their posts, especially since they make up a crucial part of the fighting force. They reluctantly agree, but before he leaves, he needs to retrieve something. Inside the castle, Thea made the party invisible, allowing them to sneak in. Security is tight, but Elka just charges in and beats up a soldier without mercy, much to Glain's exasperation. The man is stuffed into a crate, and they enter an old storage, where Setsu locates his buster sword. The guards timely find the knocked-out guard, and the castle is put on high alert. Glain states he'll buy them time, and Thea has Elka follow Setsu, so she is happily dragged away by him. They've made it outside the city, and Elka is about to see him off, but Yuhi rushes over, concerned why he is leaving. Setsu then confesses that this is his second time being summoned, and he wishes to go meet some acquaintances to stop the war. She pleads for him to take her as well, but she'll only hold him back. He doesn't want to put her in danger. Instead, Yuhi asks Setsu to close his eyes, and she uses magic to cut his hair. He's impressed with her simultaneous usage of magic, and Yuhi declares that she'll work hard to get stronger to protect Setsu. He playfully flicks her forehead, and tells her if she can dodge next time, she would pass his test. Saying their last goodbyes, Setsu sets off on his journey. A girl is traveling alone in the middle of the night. She hears strange noises in the distance and seems nervous, but her horse screams at this moment before coming to an abrupt halt. It refuses to move, and what approaches them is a giant hog-like beast. It knocks over the carriage, causing the girl to be flung away, but she seems more worried about the brooch in the box than her own safety. The girl nonchalantly packs her stuff, seemingly having forgotten about the beast that attacked her just prior. But meeting its gaze, she timidly attempts to persuade it with words, stating she's a twig and would taste terrible. Right when she was about to get ravaged, she is saved by Setsu, who easily cleaved the beast into two. Now introduced as Ruri, she seems to think he's after her money and tries to explain that she doesn't have any at the moment. She begs for him to wait for her to gather funds, but Setsu was simply passing through the area and is just glad she's safe. He gives her a hand, but his face seems to remind her of someone she's once seen in the past. Setsu questions why she hadn't hired any guards, and Ruri explains that she was in such a rush that she didn't have the time to look for one. He kindly advises her that money isn't worth risking death and was about to leave, but she calls out to him, requesting that he be her guard instead. However, Setsu also has his own plans and refuses, but Ruri begs him to accompany her at least partway as she desperately wishes to complete her delivery. In front of the crying, begging girl, Setsu falters and reluctantly agrees to take her to the upcoming port city. And so they ride the horse together, leaving behind the rest of her goods, much to Ruri's dismay. Setsu curiously asks about the package, but she refuses to divulge anything about it. They've now made it to the port city of Marsen, and Setsu marvels at the city's changes. According to Ruri, after the war 5 years ago, trade gradually increased, but that was after he left, so he wouldn't have known. She asks a sailor to take her to the demonic continent, but with wars starting between the demons and humans, obviously, transport there would also have been halted. Her delivery requires her to go to the demonic continent, so she continues to ask around, but to no avail. Taking pity on her, Setsu was about to approach her, but he witnesses her stopped by some guards in the distance. They are Knights of Destinia that are conducting safety inspections at the port. They ask for her merchant identification documents, and proceed to mock her occupation, calling merchants money grubbers. They want to inspect her bag as well, but she refuses, and they decide to harass her and forcibly confiscate the valuable for non-compliance. Setsu steps in at this moment, and he taunts them for trying to search when they don't even have a search permit. Talk about abusing their authority. He introduces himself as her guard, and as the provoked guards start to draw their blades, it draws the attention of nearby crowds. Seeing the negative attention, the leader calls for a retreat, but not before threatening them. Setsu is then pounced on by a grateful Ruri, and she wonders what she can do to repay him. In the distant sea, we can see a large shadow lurking under the waters. Later that afternoon, Ruri feeds Setsu some food as thanks for earlier. Setsu also compliments her for maintaining her smile when they were bullying her, much to her embarrassment. She then asks how he knew they needed a permit, and he attributes it to a friend that was a stickler for rules. Setsu asks how she will proceed from here, and Ruri states she would continue to ask around town for someone willing to take her to the demonic continent. Otherwise, she would consider buying a ship as a last resort. Seeing how resolved she is, Setsu gives her a suggestion, exciting her. He is also on his way to the demonic continent, so he will allow her to accompany him, but his condition is that she rest well for the night at an inn. He's noticed how hard she's pushing herself to the point of not eating and demands she rests. At an inn, they prepare to sleep as Setsu tells Ruri the bath is available for use. Before heading in to wash, however, she asks for Setsu to hold onto the box for her. His sincerity in helping her has won him her trust, and Ruri is willing to show him what's inside. She explains to him that the item inside is the very last job her grandfather took on. Upon seeing the brooch, Setsu seems surprised, seemingly recognizing the item. Ruri then starts to tell him about her grandfather. In a flashback, a young Ruri is seen walking in while her grandfather is seen arguing with a customer, not willing to sell his jewelry to an ignorant man who doesn't understand their value. The man asks for a price on the brooch, but the old man refuses to sell to him, stating he's interrupting his business. Instead of arguing, the man drops a large bag of gold coins, and the grandfather instantly changes his tune. As the saying goes, money talks. After the man leaves, Ruri comments that the grandfather once said pride was the most important thing for a craftsman, and he agrees, stating that without it, you'll get lost. Sometimes, however, there are exceptions. Her grandfather was a famous jeweler who was considered one of a kind in his craft throughout the nation of Destinia. Long after the man bought the brooch, someone else one day came in to request a repair for it. The brooch was the piece that her grandfather was most proud of, so he dedicated much effort in trying to fix it. However, he was terminally ill, and he didn't have much time left. He reiterates to her that money is important, but only because you need it to protect what's important to you. Being able to give up everything else to protect what matters is what true pride is. In his final moments, her grandfather trusts her with his final job, and she tearfully promises him that she would make sure it gets delivered. After his funeral proceedings, Ruri makes her determination to see the job through to the end, which was how she ended up meeting Setsu. This is why she places emphasis on delivering the package safely, and she passes it over to Setsu, who uses the opportunity to clasp her hands with his. As she leaves, she reflects that with Setsu she would be able to keep her promise to her grandfather. Setsu examines the brooch, and he comes to the conclusion that it was the one he cast protection on and gave away to a certain female. He worries that with this broken, something may have happened to her. It's now deep into the night, and we see how bad a sleeping posture Ruri has. The guards from earlier come barging into the inn, demanding to know where Setsu and Ruri are, accusing them as spies for the demons. They're not very subtle, so Setsu woke up to their noise. By the time they enter the room, Setsu is already waiting for them, and he escapes with Ruri through the window into the streets below. A chase ensues, and the guards appear in front of them, but Setsu easily uses their back as a springboard and continues running. He lures them into an alley, where they trip over a bunch of randomly placed bottles. And eventually, Setsu runs into a dead-end road that faces the ocean, but he doesn't mind. The guards have finally caught up now, but Setsu merely taunts them to attack. He grabs Ruri and makes a long leap towards the water, but he calls out to the depths, where a giant sea creature comes out for him to land atop of, and he calls it Leviah. He asks for it to take them to the demonic continent, and it slowly swims away. The guards remain in disbelief, and the leader decides to dismiss the case as them dreaming the entire thing up. Far out at sea, Ruri deduces Leviah is actually Leviathan, the god of the ocean. She wonders who in the world Setsu actually is, but her thoughts are interrupted by the sight of the demonic continent in the distance. Leviah aggressively fights a giant squid while Setsu excitedly cheers her on, but Leviah would really appreciate his help at this time. Setsu later reintroduces his friend, Leviah in her human form, to Ruri. She seemed a bit pitiful in her true form, but she arrogantly has Ruri thank her for blessing her with her presence. Leviah then yells at Setsu for not helping her fight the squid, but he defends he knew she could handle it. In reality, he just wanted to see giant monsters battle each other. He's disappeared for 5 years, and the long-awaited meeting ends up with her used as transportation, followed by an intense battle, so her irritation is understandable. Ruri interrupts to ask what they'll do to the giant squid, and Leviah pushes that job to Setsu. His solution is fried squid. Ruri hesitates to eat it, but she quickly comes to enjoy the taste. Leviah states it's not bad, but she'd prefer it raw. From their current location, a fishing village is nearby, and further beyond the mountains is the Demon Lord's castle. At Ruri's confusion, Setsu tells her he also has business with the package's recipient, and that their destination is the Demon Lord's castle. Leviah finds it strange a human is delivering a package to Desu, and Ruri gets surprised she actually knows the recipient. Realizing her ignorance, she reveals that the package recipient is the Demon Lord, Desu, which causes Ruri to panic. They must travel the rest of the way on foot, but Leviah plans to return to the sea, which prompts Setsu to request she continues with them. Leviah expresses her frustration, stating she's kept her promise to maintain the peace at sea, but Setsu returns after so long, only to treat her like a boat, and even came with another girl. Suddenly, young demon children show up, advising him to take responsibility and apologize as a man, which prompts him to shove food to shut them up, but it only makes them more rowdy. Leviah tells them there's plenty more to go around, and Setsu is forced to haul the squid over to their village. The village is in desperate straits, as a giant squid is preventing them from fishing, and the war with humans have halted trade, so they worry they will soon run out of food. But at that moment, Setsu timely arrives with the squid, and the village holds a celebration at night. Leviah is worshipped as the ocean god, and is presented the best drink the village has to offer. They offer her some sushi as well, and she comments she prefers it raw. but sushi is as raw as it gets. In the stands, Ruri sells squid rings from earlier to the villagers, while Setsu is responsible for making it. Levi teases that he's making them too slowly, and the annoyed Setsu showcases his cooking ability to the public, which greatly impresses them. A distance away, a demon named Vlad sees the fire in the village, and concludes humans must have invaded their shores. Vlad is the head guard of the demon lord, and he draws his blade as he rushes over to fight the enemies. The festivities have ended, and Ruri seems to have gotten drunk on juice. She wishes to know how Levi met Setsu, so she tells Ruri the epic battle between them when he tried to cross the ocean without her permission. Setsu then recruited her to help him end the war. This gains the admiration of Ruri, and she concludes this is how they met the demon lord. But in reality, the noisy war caused her to rampage, and Setsu silenced her with one punch. Levi wonders how Ruri is so clueless, given that Setsu should be famous in Destinia as the hero who ended the war. Finally reaching the conclusion, Ruri now understands why Setsu was so strong and has such connections. Levi once again brings up her frustration with Setsu treating her like a boat, and Ruri questions if she's still mad, but Levi seems happy to see him again. Ruri thinks she loves him, but Levi denies it, saying it's impossible to fall for a human. But she admits she was waiting for him to return. A sudden explosion happens, and Vlad makes his appearance. He declares he'll protect them, but everyone just stares at him weirdly. The children offer him squid rings in pity. Setsu finally sold out the squid, and he heads over to where Levi and Ruri are. Levi catches some fish using magic, preferring to eat them raw. Vlad appears to apologize for earlier, and Setsu comes over to greet him. He immediately recognizes Setsu from his magic and sword. Setsu questions why the demon lord's closest deity is here, and Vlad responds that he was looking for Levi, but he didn't expect to meet Setsu as well. He implores them to save the demon lord. He discloses that someone named Terrence Sneeder asked for Desu's hand in marriage. At Levi's confusion, he clarifies that she's enslaved through a curse. Desu should be resistant to most curses, but a powerful cursed necklace was placed on her. Vlad brings up the war, explaining that the humans suddenly invaded a month prior, using soldiers in massive armor and leaving behind the flag of Destinia. Setsu is baffled at this revelation. Desu was reluctant to start a war, and Terran appeared with an offer to stop it. As everyone questions his capabilities, Ruri reveals Terran is the world's wealthiest merchant, with his company owning most of the ships they see at sea. Both sides need merchants to supply the war, so his claim that he can stop the fighting isn't completely baseless. Desu is willing to be his slave to prevent war, but Setsu demands to know why her aides are okay with this. The generals would rather fight to the end, and Levi states it's because of Desu's promise to Setsu to maintain peace. She thinks it's stupid to cling to a promise made with someone who disappeared, but Levi is ready to help her. Vlad warns them that the road to the castle is full of monsters, but Levi will take care of the fighting. Setsu plans to take a shortcut there, and brags he will be done before Vlad arrives. As they run, Setsu feels nostalgic using the road they exploited to attack the demon lord's castle. They now have company, and Levi initiates the attack on the wolves, easily cutting them apart as they approach her. She inquires his plan once they get to the castle, and Setsu states he'll just blow everything away along with Terran. She wonders if they can stop the war without him, but Setsu suspects Terran is the one behind it. The demons think the humans initiated the attack, while the humans insist the demons attacked first. This war is not a coincidence, and is likely a setup, given that the armored soldiers attacked both sides. Terran isn't necessarily the mastermind, but he is bound to know something. With that in mind, they continue to fight through the monsters, and quickly go on their way. Levi reflects on her past, having not cared about the surface, but by following Setsu, she's learned how beautiful the world is, and wants to protect it. Levi refuses to lose to Desu. They can now see the castle in the distance, and Setsu prepares to wreak havoc on their enemies. In a flashback, we learn more about the demon Lord Desu. Knowing that the world is beyond her control, she fought for the sake of the country and her people. Eventually, Setsu defeats her, but he offers to make peace, and gives her a brooch as a symbol of their reconciliation. Not long after, Desu receives news of his sudden disappearance, but regardless, she plans to keep her promise to maintain peace. 5 years later, Desu goes to survey the city with Vlad, and it's prosperous thanks to trade with the humans. Suddenly, the brooch she treasured most breaks, and Vlad offers to send it to a skilled jeweler in Destinia to have it repaired. One day, reports that Destinia's army is invading reach Desu, but she doesn't want to jump to conclusions. She gathers her top officers to prepare the army, and orders 2 demons to act as messengers to Destinia to find out the situation. She reaffirms her promise to Setsu, wanting to keep it no matter what. With war at hand, soldiers rapidly move to secure supplies, and are angry they were tricked by the humans. They worry about the future, but they have faith that their lord will take care of the situation. However, it's been a month, and there has been no news from Destinia by her messengers. They are holding on for now, but Desu worries her nation won't last at this rate. But at this moment, she receives word from Vlad that Terran Sneeder requests an audience with her. Terran came with a proposal, but it leaves the demons outraged. He offers to use the influence of his company to help end the war, but in exchange, Desu would have to become his wife. In truth, she would become his slave, as he would have her wear a cursed necklace that forces servitude to Terran. Vlad opposes her even negotiating, but Desu requests for some time to consider it. Terran takes his leave, but teases that she doesn't have much time to make her choice. Desu is deep in thought, and concludes this might be the only way to keep her promise to Setsu. Vlad then enters, and insists she should reject the offer, stating her army is ready to fight till the end, but knowing this is why she can't refuse. She questions if he thinks she's a fool, but Vlad excuses himself, stating he won't give up. In a carriage, Terran reports to a hooded figure that things are proceeding smoothly, and soon the kingdom will become theirs. They were the ones that sent the armored soldiers to attack both sides, and Terran suggests they pull them back before an actual war begins, but the man refuses, as this is the will of his master. Present day, the day of the wedding, demons are unhappy with the situation, but the ceremony begins, and Desu finally makes her appearance as the bride. She slowly walks down the aisle, and the priest has them exchange their vows. Taking out the necklace, Terran declares he will be the new demon lord, and Desu will be his servant, but promises to bring eternal peace to the nation. With that said, he asks Desu to do her part, and she helplessly lifts her head to accept her fate, only wishing to see Setsu one last time. Terran approaches to place the necklace on her, but a sudden explosion occurs that interrupts the ceremony, and Setsu makes his heroic entrance. He announces that he's here to rescue her, and Desu feels moved. A distance away, Ruri and Vlad are heading for the castle, but they see an explosion happen at the capital. Vlad already knows it's Setsu's doing, and has them speed up. The frustrated Terran questions who Setsu is, and anxiously urges his guards to protect him. But Leviah quickly blocks them, knocking them back with her water magic. Desu is pleasantly surprised by her appearance, and Leviah comments she looks pretty bad in that dress. The hooded figure appears, and targets Leviah using shadow magic. She attempts to dodge, but the spell catches her shadow and keeps her frozen in place. The man prepares to give her a finishing blow, stabbing forward with his magic, but his attack suddenly shattered, and Setsu knocks the man down from behind. He plans to punish the man for making Desu cry, but the man merely chuckles as he recognizes Setsu, stating he'll have something interesting to report to his master. He continues to attack, but it's easily caught by Setsu, and he slices through it. The man launches a barrage of attacks, but it's easily fended off by him. He appears behind him, and smashes him into a pillar. He criticizes him for not taking the fight seriously, but the man decides to prioritize escape to report back to his master instead. He destroys the wall, which creates an explosion of dust to hide his presence as he takes his exit. With the situation cleared, Desu smashes into Setsu, crying how much she's missed him. He's glad that she's safe, and they share a hug. Levi interrupts their reunion, pointing over to the guards that initially attacked them. Their bodies fade away after being uncovered, and they are identified as magic soldiers made from curses. Setsu picks up the necklace, and determines that Toma has to be the one behind the scenes. She suspected that to be the case, and offers to lend Setsu her aid. He wants her to manage the situation here while he goes to visit the king of the beastmen, Regulus. And Desu agrees that it's the best move to make given the situation. After all, they have to keep their promise to each other. Levi asks if they have to leave right away, stating she's burned out from all the running and fighting all night. Ruri and Vlad arrive at this moment, and Vlad is devastated by the castle's destruction. Ruri hands over the box to Setsu, stating it's fitting for him to give it to Desu. He takes out the brooch, and comments that this is the second time as he places it back on her. With everything back in order, Desu reflects that Setsu was the one who taught her what it means to live. The soldiers proceed to clean up the mess, while Taran is taken away. Setsu is about to depart, and Desu shares her farewell, stating she would love to follow him, but she can't leave her position as the ruler. Setsu doesn't mind, promising that once the world is at peace, he'll take her wherever she wants. Vlad seems to be against this, but Levi states he should pick up her slack. Ruri is also staying behind, as Desu has allowed her to open a shop in appreciation for her service. Vlad thanks Setsu once more, stating they'll come racing over if he ever needs help, and they share a bro fist. As they leave, Desu asks for Setsu to return to her once everything's over, and he says his goodbye, stating he'll see her soon. In a flashback, a young Setsu is introduced to his childhood friend, Yuhi, by their parents. She invites him to play together, but he clearly has no interest in her. And so began their beautiful friendship. To Yuhi, he initially seemed like an unfriendly boy, and was intimidated by him. But they spent a lot of time together as they lived close, and he helped her a lot with her studies, so gradually, feelings of love began to form. On their way home one day, Setsu notices Yuhi stare intently at an advertisement for summer classes at a study prep academy. She wants to follow him to high school and asks for his opinion, but Setsu shuts her down, suggesting she aim for an easier school instead, stating it'll only make it harder for her later. This obviously upsets her, and she runs off. Yuhi ultimately signed up for the prep school and diligently studies, but unfortunately, her test scores do not reflect that. On her way home, she bumps into some guys who notice her gloomy appearance and assume correctly that her mock exam results were bad. They tell her to give up on studying and follow them to have fun instead. They gang up on her, but Setsu suddenly appears and tells them to stop bothering her. Misunderstanding that she was dating him, they apologize and walk away. After they leave, Setsu comments that he somewhat agrees with what they said, as reaching beyond your limits won't help anyone. This casts an awkward silence between them, and the tearful Yuhi eventually says even if she's not good enough, she still wants to attend the same school as him. Seeing her determination, he comforts her, stating he has no choice but to help her study. Wiping away her tears, she gratefully accepts his offer. In the present, girls are practicing magic on a target. While they are satisfied with their meager flame, Yuhi shows them how it should be done, creating a flame that engulfs the target, surprising everyone. Elka commends everyone's efforts and ends their training for the day. Instead of leaving, Yuhi rushes after Elka and Glain, wishing to ask about Setsu. They confirm that he is their companion, but Elka wonders if he feels the same. She has a longing to stand next to him and share their experiences together, but that seems far away. Yuhi then requests for special training, expressing her desire to also follow Setsu. Staring out into the city, Elka states that this is the peaceful world Setsu created. She is sure that even at this moment, Setsu is likely fighting to protect the peace of this world. As Setsu's companions, they are prepared to move at a moment's notice, and Yuhi also declares she shares the same sentiments, but strength is the one thing holding her back. To demonstrate her will, she and Elka face off against each other, clashing through their opposing elements, and fighting in some close combat. Surprisingly, Yuhi is able to keep up quite well, and Elka praises how far she has come, saying that while everyone summoned is exceptional, she is still one of a kind. But even so, there is one key thing Yuhi is lacking. Elka leads Yuhi to the underground sewers, and informs her it's infested with monsters. The army occasionally uses it as a rite of passage for soldiers. She warns Yuhi that something is coming, and what quickly emerges from beneath the water is a large crocodile-like monster. Yuhi is frightened by its appearance, but Elka cautions that there's no time to be scared. She nervously casts a fireball, and it blankets the monster. Thinking she defeated it, she turns away, but Elka yells to not let down her guard. The monster recovers and lunges at Yuhi, and it claws her arm. Despite the pain, she quickly casts another fireball, finally knocking it down. It's still alive, however, and Elka orders her to finish it, but she hesitates. Elka states that while Yuhi may be her equal in terms of magic ability, she lacks the decisiveness to kill the enemy, which is important if you wish to protect those dear to you. Hearing this makes Yuhi recall the first battle she had witnessed in this world, and the brutality of the war. Elka casts her ice magic on the monster, and kills it without flinching. She walks away without a word, leaving Yuhi to reflect by herself on her lacking. Later, while she is sitting alone in her room dazed, Thea knocks and enters to visit. She heals the wound Yuhi got earlier, and comments that Elka was crazy to send her into an actual battle so suddenly. She adds that she sees Yuhi as a fellow companion as well. They might not know what Setsu was like in the other world, but the way he looks at Yuhi is the same as how he looks at them. Thea comforts Yuhi, stating Elka is pushing her because she wants to treat her as an equal. She questions why Yuhi wants to follow Setsu, as it would put her in a lot of danger being near him. Setsu has helped Yuhi many times in the past, so she wants to be of help to him. Coming to an understanding, Thea wishes her good luck and leaves the room to awaiting Elka. She tells her not to worry as Yuhi is strong. Elka is confident Yuhi can protect herself on the battlefield, but she worries her indecisiveness will cost her eventually. But Thea feels they shouldn't force their will on Yuhi, as no one has that right. Rather, they should respect the path Yuhi finds for herself. While Blaine walks out from a meeting, he sees Yuhi waiting alone in the distance. He notices her discomfort and tells her that it's natural to be hesitant about taking lives, even if it's for the sake of those precious to you. She asks how he gets the courage to fight, and he states he simply chooses to inflict pain on others than allow those around him to suffer. This is what works for him, so he advises Yuhi to find an answer for herself, stating Setsu would also want the same. A way to stay true to herself while fighting. Yuhi seems to have found an answer. During practice, Yuhi utterly destroys the target with her magic, creating a giant crater, and causing unconcealed surprise from everyone. She heads back into the sewers with Elka to demonstrate her found determination. With the approach of a monster, Yuhi requests Elka to witness her answer. She casts a fireball on the monster, creating a pillar of flames, seemingly burning the beast to death from the intense heat. Elka is impressed by her strength, and was about to admit her determination was shown, but Yuhi interrupts to tell her that the monster has not yet died. She only incapacitated it, and Yuhi declares that she will never take a life, nor is she willing to lose. With a smile, Elka accepts her answer, stating it's just like Setsu's. But she warns that this requires a lot of power to pull off, and Yuhi promises she will get stronger to follow through her determination. Sometime later, the king issued his decree that the knights will leave for the demonic nation in order to protect their citizens. Blaine demands the students to prepare themselves both physically and mentally, and dismisses them. The students worry about the coming war, but Yuhi internally asks Setsu to wait for her. She dramatically climbs the stairs to her waiting companions, now finally accepted as their equal. After crashing a wedding and saving the demon lord, Setsu determined he should next travel to the Beast Kingdom and seek the help of Regulus, the Beast King. He's separated from everyone, but Levi still accompanies him, and they go on their way in a carriage. Watching her lazily stuff herself with snacks, Setsu gets frustrated at her lax attitude. In contrast to her cool promise prior to setting off from the demonic kingdom, her current demeanor doesn't give him much confidence in her. But she argues there's nothing to do until they reach the port, and she would have to ferry him after, so she just wants to enjoy herself till then. Feeling guilty, Setsu switches topics to ask why they can't use magic to teleport themselves to their destination, as it would be much faster. It's called transfer magic, and Levi explains how complex the process is, taking years of preparation and a ton of magic power to make it happen. They have no choice but to move on foot. That said, travel takes effort, and she demands Setsu compensate her, wanting his portion of the cookies that he helplessly hands over. The carriage suddenly stops, and additional people prepare to board, but one of them seems to recognize Setsu. He happily greets her as crybaby Eliza, and she tearfully calls him master, defending that she's no longer a crybaby. He formally introduces her to Levi, stating that they traveled together for a while when he was last summoned. She announces herself as his top student, as he taught her essential combat techniques every night, beating it into her hard. Eliza then introduces her companion, Amel, who calls herself her younger sister. She's not really her sister, but it somehow ended up that way. Eliza demands to know where Setsu had been, having left her behind for 5 years, and he is forced to give an explanation. He brings her up to speed on what happened, and she now knows his current quest to thwart Toma's plans to reignite the flames of war. With that said, he invites her to join him and travel to the Beastman continent. However, she is currently caught up in a serious situation. After Setsu's disappearance, Eliza took monster hunting jobs to continue her training, and it led her to a village that requested she slays a dragon. It was a nice, quiet village named Zathro. They offered her housing, and she ended up rooming with Amel, who was also living in the village at the time. As they eat together, Eliza compliments the fresh food, which is hard to find now that the demons are at war with the humans. She asks Amel if she's been living alone, but is informed that this house is actually her brother's. Amel isn't from the village, rather she was found and taken in by her brother 2 years ago. But ever since the dragon's first appearance, he had mysteriously disappeared, leaving her alone ever since. Feeling sympathy for her, Eliza comments that the village is a nice place, and she plans to rest here for the time being, so she asks to treat her as a sister. And Amel happily accepts her offer, calling her Big Sis. Setsu wants clarification on whether Amel's brother was killed by the dragon, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Every time the dragon attacked the village, villagers would go missing. If the dragon had taken them somewhere, there should have been signs of struggle or evidence of battle. However, everyone disappeared without the slightest trace, no exceptions. They agree that this is definitely not normal. Instead, Eliza disabled the protection ward, in hopes of luring the dragon to attack and have it defeated by her. She tells Amel to go back home where it'll be safer, but before she leaves, Amel wanted to show her the butterfly that she caught. It flies off, but the girls share a happy moment together as Amel gleefully states she wants to introduce her to her brother. Not long after, the dragon appears and attacks Eliza, but she nimbly jumps around and stabs into its arm, causing it to fly away. She tried to chase after it, but it managed to escape. So she heads back, only to find everyone missing, somehow leaving only Amel as the sole survivor. With no one left, she decided to take Amel to the city to have someone take care of her, which was how Eliza ended up crossing paths with Setsu. It's a dire situation that leaves them all baffled, so Eliza asks if Setsu has any idea of what's going on. He doesn't know anything either, but he and Levi are willing to help, getting the girls' appreciation. Levi suggests that the whole village became zombies through necromancy, but Setsu refutes the possibility as the villagers vanished without a trace. But Levi insists the zombies merely turned invisible, and that the dragon is also an undead. Setsu brushes off her theory, so she then suggests a siren, having heard tales of people going missing from and among sailors. But the village is in the mountains, making it impossible. Amel chimes in that sea monsters have a distinct smell that makes them easy to identify, even pointing out Levi's scent. Setsu would rather believe that space aliens are what's abducting the villagers, but Levi finds him foolish. Feeling sad, he then suggests maybe the monster could take human form, and avoided pursuit by hiding amongst villagers. He asks if Levi could do something similar, but she denies she would do such things. This surprises Eliza, and she asks if Levi is a dragon, but she clarifies she is the sea god. Their discussion is interrupted by the coachman, who informs them he can't cross until the water settles down. Eliza plans to head back to the village to look for clues after reaching the city. And Setsu wonders why a dragon would repeatedly attack the village. Levi suggests either it's looking for prey, or it was drawn there by magic, stating powerful magic could attract monsters to a location. With that in mind, it still doesn't explain how the people just vanished, and Setsu concludes that transfer magic was used, which attracted the dragon over. But magic requires a caster, and at Alize's confusion, Setsu points to Amel. Transfer magic requires years to prepare, and Amel just happens to have joined 2 years ago. She tries to deny the accusation, but what confirmed his theory is when she told Levi she doesn't smell bad. Levi is the sea god and can tightly control her magic, making her unidentifiable to others, but somehow Amel knew she was a sea monster. No longer refuting, she explodes the carriage, and seemingly takes the form of a dragon, confirming his suspicions. Setsu calls Eliza his top pupil, and she rushes over to assist him. When the dragon slips on the ground, he has Levi coat his blade with her magic and sends a slash into its open mouth. As it retreats, Eliza once again crashes down on it, and impales her blade into its head, killing it. With the situation settled, Setsu and Levi continue their journey. She wonders if it was okay to leave Eliza alone, but Setsu is confident she can clean up the situation by herself. They now see their next destination in the distance. Now back in the village, Eliza reflects on her past with Amel, but gets interrupted by the still-alive Amel. At her shock, Amel mocks Eliza for thinking she died, stating her sense of smell is dull. She reveals that the villagers were all turned into dolls, the very same magic soldiers that started the war. The person named Amel never existed, and she reintroduces herself as Meluar, the monster master. She reveals it's the name given to her by Setsu's archenemy, Toma. In the port city of the Beastmen continent, Leoport, we see a young girl named Shironeko walking down the busy street. Upon seeing her, a stall owner offers her some fish. Another shop provides some meat for her to take back as well. In this manner, many shopkeepers continue to give away large amounts of their goods, thanking her for helping them secure their supply chains. She is still growing, and also has a younger sister to take care of, so the adults are more than happy to share, reasoning that beastmen should look after each other. She sincerely gives her thanks, promising to repay them before moving on. Shironeko seems popular with the children as well, as they flock to her and request that she teach them how to fight monsters again, wanting to be strong like her. But she refuses, as fighting is her job, and the children should instead be out playing. By the end of her stroll, she can no longer carry any more food, and the townsfolk laugh at her expense. It was a hard struggle, but she manages to open her door, and greets her sibling, Mineko. Mineko notes that everyone loves her too much, and Shironeko states she'll give away the excess food to others in need. She suddenly begins to violently cough, and is swiftly given her medication for her to drink. She apologizes to Shironeko for holding her back, but all the elder wants is for Mineko to be healthy, telling her to not give up. Her only worry is that the medicine is running out. Sometime later, Setsu is seen bargaining with a sailor, requesting that he loan them a boat for their use, but the man refuses, stating there currently isn't any. But Setsu is reluctant to back down, even willing to ride the man's back if needed. With no other choice, Setsu confirms Levi would once again have to ferry him, which irks her because she spent the last 3 days swimming non-stop. She's the only one he can rely on right now, so Levi kindly offers to take him the next day, but the man interrupts to inform them that a ship would be available then, ruining the mood. And the man introduces them to a nearby inn for them to stay the night. At the same time, Shironeko enters an inn, where the innkeeper named Koroinu hands her a bottle of medicine. She procures the expensive medicine for her, but she doesn't mind helping, hoping for Mineko's swift recovery. Koroinu then changes topics, informing her of her next job, which is more troublesome than the other ones so far. It's an assassination job, and Koroinu shows her a bounty paper with the target's portrait. She explains that with the completion of this particular job, Shironeko would never have to work another day in her life, and would easily be able to afford the medication Mineko needs. As she hesitates, Setsu and Levi coincidentally enter, wishing to stay at the inn for the night. Shironeko takes note of Setsu's appearance, confirming that he is the target as she takes her leave. Back at home, she notices Mineko's lack of appetite, causing her to worry about her deteriorating health. Realizing that she must secure more medicine, Shironeko makes up her mind to take the job, and tells Mineko that she has one more thing to do tonight. Unbeknownst to them, Mineko seems to be wearing a cursed necklace. Setsu and Levi are sound asleep in their room. The innkeeper opens a side entrance to the inn, where she informs the waiting Shironeko that they are asleep. Shironeko is determined to follow through, but before that, she requests to call Koroinu her older sister. She has been taking care of the orphan Shironeko and Mineko, which is why they are still alive today. To Shironeko, she is practically family, and she wonders if they could find a quiet place to live together after this job. Koroinu doesn't mind being called sister, and encourages Shironeko to complete the job for her younger sibling, and hands her the key to Setsu's room. As she rushes inside, Koroinu reflects that it's been a long time since she was last called sister. Shironeko silently enters the room, and slashes down at Setsu. But she notices too late that it's illusion magic as Setsu attacks her from behind, sending her flying through the window. He probes whether she follows Toma, but Shironeko gets confused, and asserts she must take his life. She does a partial beast transformation, and proceeds to use magic on him to no avail as he easily cuts through it. He counterattacks, grabbing her head, smacking her face, and sending her crashing to the ground, knocking her out. Setsu immediately notices remnant curse magic on her, and concludes that it likely transferred to her from another source. Watching from a distance, Koroinu quietly slips away. When Shironeko finally regains consciousness, she immediately notices Setsu and was about to lunge at him, but is stopped by Mineko, who explains they found her unconscious and brought her back here. Setsu wants her to play along, and she meekly thanks him for the help. Understanding the gist of their circumstances, he informs her that Mineko's condition isn't from an illness. He casts magic on her necklace, which reveals the dark magic that lingers around her body. It's a powerful curse, and Levi suspects Toma's involvement, but Setsu worries more about how to save Mineko. Shironeko begs him to save her sister, willing to do anything, and he coolly replies to leave it to him. He warns that the process will be unpleasant, but Mineko pleads him to continue. As she lies on the bed, Setsu calls out a chant, gathering magic into his hand, which gradually takes the shape of a strange sword. He introduces it as his trump card, Gluttony. Setsu orders it to devour the curse, and it begins to suck out the dark magic from within her. But it takes a large toll on him. A kunai suddenly flies toward him, but Shironeko jumps in to take the hit instead. It turns out to be Koroinu, and she criticizes Shironeko for failing her job and even protecting the target. She gets blown back by a burst of water, however, and Levi steps in to guard Setsu. He remains immobile while removing the curse, so Leviah steps in, confident she can handle a mere innkeeper. More kunais are easily blocked by a wave of her arm, and Koro-Inu confirms Leviah is the sea god. She mocks whether Leviah can even wield her strength on land, but what Koro-Inu doesn't know is that the sea follows wherever Leviah goes, and she is easily knocked down to the ground. Leviah demands to know Toma's purpose, but Koro-Inu remains silent, not fearing death. Shironeko interrupts to ask why she would do such a thing, but she finds her revolting, calling her pathetic for failing a simple order. She proudly states Toma's goal is to become a god, and destroy all life in this world. Koro-Inu is confident he can reach godhood, and she uses their shock to quickly blind them and makes her escape. Setsu has finally finished the procedure, and Mineko runs over to hug her sister. She's completely healthy now, and the sisters share their moment of relief together. Setsu states Mineko has the same necklace Desu's had, and comments Toma is a total whack job as always, but he's determined to stop him at all costs to maintain the peace. The duo now ride along the river, finally having secured a boat. Leviah complains that they weren't able to rest because of the night's incident, but it's now smooth sailing to the capital to meet the Beast King, and Setsu looks forward to fighting together once again. He suddenly notices the cat siblings a distance away, and has the boat stop near them. The girls plead to follow Setsu, voicing that they are useful in combat. They wish to repay him for helping Mineko, and also want to see Koro-Inu once more. It's going to be a tough journey, but they are determined to follow through, so Setsu welcomes the sisters to the party, and they set off once more to the Beastmen royal capital, Regdam.